We think we've got a good reason, but we don't, actually. I always like to think of the fact that, you know, Jesus got angry. We read about when he got angry and he healed the guy with the crippled hand. Carol and I were talking about this last week about anger and the challenge of getting angry but sinning not, getting angry but channeling our anger to become part of the solution. Because it's a powerful emotion and it moves us to do something good. Whereas, obviously, you can do the opposite. You can hurt people very deeply because of anger that develops into a hatred and reason is gone. My first question is, have you ever been hated without a cause? There's just like no point of reference. Why? Because you're innocent. You know, you rack your brain, you know, if you did something and then somebody says, you know, I saw that. It's like, oh, okay. Like Moses, you know, he killed somebody. Oh, you killed him. Oh, yeah, okay, I get that. I'm out of here. But when you haven't done anything, it's what you are or it's what they are, and it's kind of... I'm sure if we thought about it, there probably would be times you may not even have recognized it, but somebody may have been. Because it's relatively common for people to have a go at somebody else because something between their anger, hatred, something emotional got a hold of them and pushed them in a direction of doing something to somebody. But a more provocative question might be, have you ever hated anybody pointlessly without a cause? That's a hard one. It's hard. Isn't it funny how it's almost easier to think of the people that have come after me than maybe the people that I have given a hard time unreasonably. Really, the bottom line is for no good reason, really. Whatever I would attach to my actions, like you just said, I thought I had a good reason until I realized I didn't. The difference between having a reason and a good reason, those are different kinds of things. I think at the heart of they hated me without a cause, we can just read over that as, oh, it fulfilled a prophecy. Or we can enter the depth of what Jesus was actually saying, what David actually said in the Psalm. Because this is something that's so easily run by and run over, and actually hatred, doing things that we justify to people, innocent people, these are common things in the workplace, in families. We would tend to lean towards, but I've got a good reason to hate. And I might be able to go along with that. So you've got a good reason. My question is this: do you have a right? I'm not interested in your reasons, whether they're good or bad, or I'm wondering, do you believe you have the right to hate? Galatians 5:20. There's a list of stuff that Paul gives us that are some dreadful kinds of sins, really. Hatred is one of them. It means to be hostile to someone. It's a work of the flesh. It's not of God. Let's read Romans 8:7 first.
Because the mind set on the flesh is hostile toward God, for it does not subject itself to the law of God, for it is not even able to do so.
That's really interesting. It actually says it's hostile, because usually it says the carnal mind is enmity with God. In other words, well, it's like what you just said there. It's the same word that Paul uses when he says hatred. This hatred, the carnal mind, gets into this Galatians 5 state kind of thing. But it used the word hostile there. But you'll notice that it's okay to hate things, but not people. And that becomes really crucial. And I hope, if nothing else, when we would leave here, that we would be able to separate those two things and be able to say, I hate what that person did, but I do not have the right to hate that person. I hate what they did, though. That was awful, whatever it might be. I do struggle with this sometimes. Ta-da! I raise both hands. Because there's some things that get reported on the news, or you read about, or somebody tells you about, dreadful kinds of crimes, that my immediate instincts is to think of the person more than the crime that they committed. I kind of almost put the crime aside and go after the person in my mind. Proverbs 8:13.
The fear of the Lord is to hate evil. I hate arrogant pride and the evil way and perverse utterances.
Yeah. Couldn't say it's better ourselves, really. That to hate evil is an expression of the fear of the Lord. Because he hates evil. So we're with our dad. I mean, that answers the question, does God hate? But we'll get to that one. Another question I have here, do we ever have the right, are we justified? Do we justify hating someone? The answer is no. We cannot justify hating someone. Now remember what we're talking about. Hating, not just saying, I don't like that guy. We're talking about a hatred that takes action, that acts on it, that brings persecution, that makes the person's life miserable. I've talked with a lot of people. I've only been in a couple situations where people that were higher up the ladder made my life miserable because they could and they didn't like me. They hated me without a cause. I gave no reason. And I'd be the first one to say I gave them cause. I made their life miserable, so they made my life miserable. And there's nothing like that. It's just coming down on me because they could. It may not be the intensity of hatred like fangs are coming out. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an emotion that gets a hold of us and causes us to act in a certain way. That's the opposite of the action of love, let's put it that way. So, whatever reason we would give as a good reason still comes back to, but do you have the right? Can you you can give me the reason. I can tell you when I listen to the news and I hear about certain things that people do, why those particular actions drive me crazy, and I'm on an emotional spiral from anger to crying. That is just like almost uncontrollable. It's just like like a loop that happens. I can give you the reasons, but to stand before God and be able to say, I hate that person and this is the reason why, as if he's going to say, oh, gee, you presented a really good case. So you go ahead. You hate your brother. It's not he is your brother. Your sister. And the question is, does God hate? And that's yes. There's way too many scriptures, but you won't find a single one where he talks about hating people.
Right.
When he hates, he actually has a purpose. He has a cause. It's not without a cause. He has a purpose in the things that he hates. There's verses like this, or things like this. God, in Isaiah 61:8, God says, I hate robbery. God says to Amos in 5:21, I hate your feast days. Oh, so much for our Christmas programs. He says, I hate your palaces. He doesn't hate palaces and feast days in the context that we're thinking of, so we celebrate this or we celebrate. That's not the point. What he hates is hypocrisy. That you go in and you say, "Fair is Lord Jesus," and you smack somebody after the service, or you call your wife something inappropriate, or you treat people inappropriate. Oh, I love the Lord, and bam, do this other stuff. He says, I hate that stuff. I hate hypocrisy. I hate for you to be living in this, big, gorgeous palace that you've run all over everybody to build and develop, and then say, oh, but I love my neighbor. No, you don't. You only love your neighbor if you can get something from him. You love yourself. This is what he's really taking issue with Amos about. I hate the hypocrisy. Israel has become the biggest hypocrite on the planet, and I hate hypocrisy. He's not saying I hate Israel. I hate hypocrisy. Zechariah 8:17.
Also let none of you devise evil in your heart against another, and do not love perjury, for all of these are what I hate, declares the Lord.
Again, they're things. He's talking about things that he hates, not the people. The things that we mull over in our hearts and our minds, that kind of thing. Proverbs 6, verses 16 through 19.
There are 6 things which the Lord hates, yes, 7 which are an abomination to him. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to evil, a false witness who utters lies, and one who spreads strife among brothers.
Those are a lot of things to hate. But they are deplorable. Every single one is deplorable. When you see that we've been made in the image and likeness of God, and every one of those things is the exact opposite of the image and likeness of God. So my last question. Do people hate God?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, baby. They are talking about God. They're not talking about things anymore. It's personal. They may not say, I hate God. But they're persecuting Him. All the actions are there of persecuting Him out of this place of, we're using the word hatred, because that's the word. They hated me without a cause. Although they think they have a good reason, I'm sure. The good reasons might be anything from their doctrine. I mean, even atheists have doctrine, don't they? They believe something. But obviously what they believe, Keith, and like you say, they don't know Him. They think they do. They have a doctrine that they've developed about God that they actually believe to be true. And by the way, this is a dangerous area because even Christians do this. They have things, they have doctrine that they believe about God that are not true. And I will tell you this, I'm not talking about being disappointed in God, because most of the time our disappointment with God is because we do know Him. And He's acting outside of what we've always known to be true. So we get disappointed. But anytime there's an actual kind of a disdain for God, where we're actually taking issue with Him, which is a form of persecution, something's wrong with your doctrine someplace. You got it wrong. Somebody's taught you something wrong, you've read something wrong, you don't know Him.